Not every abuse of power, no matter how outrageous, is necessarily a federal crime. Now, as to President Obama and Vice President Biden, whatever their level of involvement, based on the information I have today, I don't expect Mr. Durham's work will lead to a criminal investigation of either man.
So why are we going through the dance?
Well, I think it is important to understand their level of involvement. It wasn't as if, the question about what did President Obama, Vice President Biden know had been lingering out there, but it's only through the evidence and the fact gathering that has now led to, for instance, Joe Biden is one of the people unmasking General Flynn. I think that's a legitimate question. I gotta believe the Attorney General when he says he's not looking at criminal referrals or investigations of the president or the vice president, but to understand the core of how Donald Trump was spied on, about how in his campaign and the collusion and all the country has gone through for 3+ years. Where is the curiosity from the Democrats who used to be champions of concern about these types of things, from the media who trumpeted time after time after time about this so-called collusion? We're now trying to get to the bottom of this and find this out, and thank goodness for Senator Johnson, Senator Graham for what they're doing. But it really is going to come down to Barr and to Durham, and I do think you're going to have more than the Department of Justice. I do think some of these intelligence agencies, Clapper, Brennan, and some of their cohorts are going to be right in the thick of this, and that will be a driving issue. Whether or not Donald Trump wants it to be or not, it will be a driving issue in this campaign.
Very interesting. Emily, I'm looking at what you have told us before and what I've read. Barr is seeing the difference in the metric that you get to unmask versus leak. The crime is the leak. So if they can't prove that, maybe that's why Barr says likely no federal crime committed by Biden or Obama at this point that they could charge them with.
That's exactly right. And to the larger point, if this investigation was conducted with full faith and force and a transparency of evidence without a conclusion that they were driving a train toward, then that's wonderful. We should all be applauding that. And I think the absence of a criminal conclusion does not mean that it hasn't, however, raised questions that people need to answer, that we as the American public and taxpayers need to hold our election or our elected officials accountable for. So I think it's not mutually exclusive that one means scot-free. Sure, there's criminal in one bucket, but that sort of opens a whole host of questions on the side that I would love to hear the answers for. Final quick point. I do take issue with the Biden campaign senior strategic advisor calling these side or manufactured issues when a secret court has a standard of review that is probable cause that an American citizen is simply speaking with a foreign power that is well below our constitutionally protected probable cause of committing a crime. That is not a side issue. That's not manufactured. That is a fundamental liberty and afforded protection for our American citizens. So I think this should be a full front and center issue for the American public. And
I think you should argue it.
Because
you are really good at it.
Thank you.
Kennedy, how does this play politically for President Trump? I know, look at Jason's giving you an applause there. How does this play politically for Biden or for Trump?
All right, so Joe Biden is trying to tell two stories here. He participated in the unmasking of Michael Flynn, who was incidentally captured in a conversation with someone who was being surveilled under these various surveillance acts and statutes. But then he says, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have any part in it. That should worry you when it comes to a Biden administration, because if he had no idea what he was doing and he was simply doing what he was directed without any thought, then that basically makes him a mindless blob. And if you are comfortable electing someone like that who will be controlled like a puppet by a group of faceless bureaucrats who will have zero accountability, I pray for this country, and I pray for people who would fall under such a spell, because that is some dark magic, and it is very bad news. If he can't think for himself and he can't recall basic facts, then he should not be running for president. A lot of Democrats know that. The question is it too late for them to switch him out with someone with a little bit more mental capacity?